A billionaire saw a little girl crying on the street. When he looked closer, his heart stopped. Around her neck was the gold chain he lost 5 years ago. He rushed to her, his hand shaking. "Where did you get that?" he demanded. The little girl clutched it tight and said, "Don't touch it. This is my daddy's chain." The billionaire froze. His whole world stopped spinning. "Daddy's chain," he whispered. Who was this child? How did she have his most precious possession? And why did looking at her face feel like staring into a mirror from the past? What happened next will break your heart and put it back together again. Stay with me until the end, because this story will change the way you see fate, love, and second chances forever. Welcome to the Fortune Files channel. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and share your thoughts on the story, as well as where you are watching from. Let me tell you a story that will touch your heart. A story about a young woman named Grace, who lived in the busy streets of Chicago with her best friend, Patricia. Life wasn't easy for Grace. She lived in a tiny apartment, worked odd jobs, and some nights she went to bed with an empty stomach. But you know what? She never gave up hope. Every morning, she would look in the mirror and say to herself, "One day, things will change. One day, my story will be different." And then, one beautiful morning, that day came. Grace got a call. She had been hired as a housekeeper at the Grand Plaza Hotel downtown. Can you imagine her joy? She screamed so loud that Patricia came running from the kitchen, thinking something was wrong. But no, nothing was wrong. Everything was finally going right. That evening, Patricia had an idea. "Grace," she said with a big smile, "we need to celebrate. Let's go out tonight. Let's go dancing. You deserve it." Grace wasn't sure at first. She had never been much of a party person. But Patricia kept insisting. "Just one night," she said. "Just one night to celebrate your victory." So Grace agreed. They got dressed up and went to a popular nightclub called the Blue Moon on the south side of Chicago. The music was loud, the lights were flashing, and people were everywhere laughing and dancing. It felt like a different world to Grace, a world she didn't quite belong to. But here's where the story takes a turn. On that same night, in a completely different part of the city, there was a man named Daniel. Daniel was 33 years old, successful, wealthy, and respected. He owned a construction company that built hotels and office buildings across Chicago. People called him Mr. Whitmore. He had money, he had power. But that night, he had something else too. Pain. You see, Daniel's business partner, the man he trusted like a brother, had betrayed him. This man stole money from their company and disappeared, leaving Daniel to deal with the mess. Daniel felt crushed. His heart was broken, not by a woman, but by betrayal. So that night, he drove to the Blue Moon nightclub and started drinking. He drank one glass, then another, trying to drown the pain. His security team saw him struggling. They knew he couldn't drive home in that condition. So they took him upstairs to one of the private hotel rooms above the club to rest. Meanwhile, downstairs, Grace was not feeling well. Earlier that day, she had taken some strong medication for a terrible headache. Now, mixed with the loud music in the crowded room, she felt dizzy and weak. She touched Patricia's arm and said, "I need to lie down. I can't stand anymore." Patricia was worried, but the music was too loud to talk properly. Grace told her she would find a quiet place to rest and come back. So Grace walked upstairs, searching for somewhere to sit down. She saw a door slightly open. The room was dark and quiet. Without thinking much, she walked inside and laid down on the soft bed. Within seconds, she was fast asleep. She didn't know it was Daniel's room. A few minutes later, Daniel walked into his room. His head was spinning. His vision was blurry. He could barely think straight. When he saw Grace lying on the bed in his drunken confusion, he thought his friends had sent someone to comfort him. Grace didn't wake up. She was deep in sleep from the medication. That night, in confusion, pain, and weakness, two strangers became connected in a way neither of them would understand until much later. When Grace opened her eyes the next morning, the sun was shining through the window. Her head was still heavy. She sat up slowly and looked around. The room was empty. The man was gone. Her heart started beating fast. What happened? Where am I? What have I done? She looked down and saw her clothes scattered on the floor. Panic filled her chest. Then her eyes landed on something shiny on the pillow next to her. A gold chain. It was thick, beautiful, and expensive looking. On the pendant, there were initials carved into the metal. DW. Grace picked it up with shaking hands. She also noticed some cash on the nightstand. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't understand what had happened, but she knew something had changed forever. She quickly got dressed, grabbed the gold chain, and ran out of that room as fast as she could. When she got home, Patricia was waiting, worried, sick. "Grace, where were you? I've been calling you all night." But Grace couldn't speak. She just collapsed into Patricia's arms and cried. 1 month passed. Grace tried to forget that night. She went to work every day at the hotel, cleaning rooms, washing sheets, and serving guests with a smile. But something was wrong. She felt tired all the time. She couldn't eat properly. Her body felt strange. So she went to a clinic. The nurse ran some tests. When the nurse came back, she was smiling. "Congratulations," she said sweetly. "You're pregnant." Grace felt the world stop. Her ears started ringing. Her hands went cold. "What did you say?" she whispered. The nurse smiled again. "You're going to have a baby." Grace walked out of that clinic like a ghost. She sat on a bench outside and cried until she had no more tears left. She was alone. She had no family. She didn't even know the man's name. All she had was a gold chain with the initials DW and a baby growing inside her. That night, Grace held the chain in her hands and whispered, "I don't know who you are, but I promise to love this child. I promise to protect this baby. I will do my best, even if I have to do it alone." Let me tell you what happened next, because Grace's journey was far from easy. After Grace found out she was pregnant, she and Patricia tried everything to find the father. They went back to the Blue Moon nightclub and spoke to the manager. "Please," Patricia begged, "do you remember a man who booked a hotel room that night? He might have been drunk. He might have left something behind." The manager shook his head. "We see hundreds of people every night. I can't remember one person from a month ago." They showed him the gold chain. "Have you seen anyone wearing this?" Grace asked with desperate hope in her voice. The manager looked at it closely and said, "It looks expensive, but I've never seen it before. I'm sorry." Grace and Patricia asked the bartenders, the security guards, even the cleaning ladies. Nobody knew anything. It was like the man had vanished into thin air. Grace walked out of that club with her head down, feeling more lost than ever. But Grace was a fighter. Even though she didn't know who the father was, even though she had no money and no support, she decided to keep the baby. "This child didn't ask to be born," she told Patricia. "But I will give this baby all the love I have." The months passed slowly. Grace's belly grew bigger. Work became harder. She would be cleaning a hotel room and suddenly feel dizzy. She would be carrying towels and need to sit down because her back hurt. Her boss started noticing. Other workers started whispering. Then one day, the manager called her into his office. "Grace," he said with a serious face, "I've been getting complaints. Guests say you fell asleep in their rooms. Other staff say you're too slow. I'm sorry, but I have to let you go." Grace felt her world crumble. She begged him, "Please, sir, I need this job. I'm pregnant. I have nowhere else to go." But the manager shook his head. "I'm sorry. I've made my decision." Grace walked out of that hotel with tears streaming down her face. She sat outside on the cold steps and cried until her throat hurt. How would she survive now? How would she feed her baby? Patricia found her there hours later and took her home. "We'll figure it out," Patricia said, holding her tight. "You're not alone. I'm here." The baby came on a cold winter night. Grace gave birth to a beautiful little girl with big brown eyes and soft curly hair. Grace named her Lily. When Grace held Lily for the first time, she forgot all the pain, all the struggle, all the tears. "Hello, my angel," she whispered. "I'm your mama, and I will never leave you." 5 years passed. Let me tell you, those 5 years were the hardest of Grace's life. Patricia got married and moved to another state. So Grace was truly alone now. But she found a job at a small diner called Rose's Kitchen on the west side of Chicago. The pay was low, but it was enough to rent a tiny room and buy food. Grace would wake up at 5 in the morning, get Lily ready, drop her at a neighbor's house, work all day serving food and washing dishes, then pick up Lily in the evening. She was exhausted every single day, but every night she would read Lily bedtime stories and sing her songs until she fell asleep. Lily was now 4 years old, smart, curious, and full of life. But one evening, Lily came home from preschool looking sad. Grace noticed immediately. "What's wrong, baby?" she asked gently. Lily looked up with tears in her eyes. "Mama, where's my daddy? All my friends have daddies. Sophie's daddy picks her up from school. Jackson's daddy takes him to the park. But I don't have a daddy." Grace's heart shattered into a million pieces. She didn't know what to say. So she did something she had been saving for this moment. She went to her drawer and pulled out the gold chain. She had kept it safe all these years. Grace knelt down and showed it to Lily. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "this chain belonged to your daddy. I don't know his name. I don't know where he is. But I know he existed. And this chain proves it." Lily's eyes lit up like stars. "Really? This is my daddy's." Grace nodded and gently placed the chain around Lily's neck. "Yes, baby. Keep it safe. Don't let anyone touch it. This is the only thing we have from him." Lily touched the chain with her small fingers and smiled for the first time that day. "I have a daddy," she whispered. "I have a daddy's chain." From that day on, Lily wore that chain everywhere. To school, to bed, to the park. It became her most precious possession. Meanwhile, across the city in a giant mansion in the wealthy neighborhood of Lincoln Park, Daniel sat on his balcony with his father, Richard Whitmore. They were drinking tea and watching the sunset. "Son," Richard said, "you're 38 years old now. Where are you going to settle down and get married? I want grandchildren before I die." Daniel smiled. "Soon, Dad. I've been seeing someone. Her name is Monica. She's beautiful, educated, successful. I think she might be the one." Richard nodded approvingly. "Good. Bring her to meet me soon." But then Daniel went quiet. He stared into the distance with a strange look on his face. "Dad," he said slowly, "do you ever feel like something is missing from your life? Like there's an empty space inside you that nothing can fill?" His father looked at him with concern. "What do you mean?" "I don't know how to explain it," Daniel continued. "I have money. I have success. I have everything a man could want. But sometimes I feel incomplete, like I lost something important, and I don't even know what it is." Richard sighed. "You miss your mother. She passed away 5 years ago. That pain never fully goes away." Daniel nodded, but deep down, he knew it was something else. Something he couldn't name. Something he couldn't remember. What Daniel didn't know was that the missing piece of his life was a little girl named Lily, wearing his gold chain and calling it "my daddy's chain." Let me tell you about the day everything changed. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon in July. The sun was burning and the air felt thick and heavy. Grace was lying in her small room, sweating and shaking. She had caught a terrible fever. Her head was pounding like a drum, and her whole body ached. "Lily," she called out weakly. "Baby, come here." Lily ran to her mother's side, worry written all over her little face. Grace reached for her purse with trembling hands and pulled out some money and a prescription note. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I need you to be brave. Go to the pharmacy down the street. Show them this paper, and they'll give you medicine for Mama." Lily nodded quickly. Try and be strong even though she was scared. "I'll run fast, Mama. I promise." She took the money in the note, made sure her daddy's chain was secure around her neck, and ran out the door. At that exact moment, on the other side of town, Daniel was sitting in the back of his black Mercedes. His driver was taking him to a business meeting downtown. But Daniel wasn't paying attention to the buildings or the traffic. His mind was somewhere else. His girlfriend Monica had told him some big news a few days ago. "Daniel," she had said with tears in her eyes, "I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby." Daniel had been shocked at first, But then joy had filled his heart. He was going to be a father. His father would finally have a grandchild. Everything seemed perfect, but something still felt wrong. Even with this good news, that empty feeling in his chest hadn't gone away. If anything, it had gotten stronger. "Sir, are you all right?" his driver asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. Daniel snapped out his thoughts. "Yes, I'm fine. Just thinking." As they drove through a neighborhood Daniel had never visited before, something caught his eye. A little girl was running down the sidewalk, crying. She was small, maybe 4 or 5 years old, wearing a simple dress and old shoes. But what struck Daniel most was the desperate way she was running, like her life depended on it. "Stop the car," Daniel said suddenly. The driver looked confused. "Sir, stop the car right now." The driver hit the brakes. Before the car had fully stopped, Daniel opened the door and jumped out. He ran after the little girl. "Hey, little girl, wait. Are you okay?" Lily heard the voice and stopped. She turned around, tears streaming down her face. A tall man in an expensive suit was running toward her. She was scared at first, but something about his eyes seemed kind. Daniel slowed down and knelt on the sidewalk in front of her, breathing hard. "Why are you crying?" he asked gently. "Where are your parents?" Lily wiped her nose with her hand. "My mama is sick. I need to buy medicine for her. She has a very bad fever." Daniel felt his heart squeeze. "Where's your father?" "I don't have a father," Lily said quietly. "I mean, I do, but I don't know where he is. I only have his chain." And that's when Daniel saw it. Hanging around this little girl's neck was a gold chain. His gold chain, the one with his initials carved into it. DW. The chain he had lost 5 years ago and searched everywhere for. The chain he had finally given up on ever finding. Daniel felt like he couldn't breathe. His hands started shaking. He pointed at the chain with a trembling finger. Where did you get that?" Lily grabbed the chain protectively and stepped back. "Don't touch it. This is my daddy's chain. My mama said nobody can touch it." Daniel's mind was spinning. "Your daddy's chain? What do you mean?" "My mama gave it to me," Lily explained, still holding it tight. "She said my daddy left it behind. She said it's the only thing I have from him." Daniel felt the world tilt beneath his feet. He stared at this little girl, really looked at her for the first time. Her brown eyes, the shape of her face. Something about her seemed familiar, like looking into a mirror from the past. "What's your mama's name?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Grace. Her name is Grace." Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst out his chest. Could it be? Could this child be his? "Where is your house?" he asked urgently. "Take me to your mama. Right now." Lily hesitated, but something about this man made her trust him. Maybe it was the way he looked at her chain. Maybe it was the tears in his eyes. "It's not far," she said. "Just down that street." Daniel turned to his driver, who had been watching everything in shock. "Go to the nearest pharmacy. Buy everything on this list." He handed the driver the prescription note Lily was holding. "Hurry!" Then Daniel held out his hand to Lily. "Come on, let's go see your mama." Lily took his hand, and together they walked down the broken sidewalk. Daniel's expensive shoes stepped over trash and puddles. His designer suit got dusty. But he didn't care about any of that. All he could think about was the chain around this little girl's neck and the woman, named Grace, who was waiting somewhere ahead. As they walked, Daniel's mind raced back to that night 5 years ago. The night he had been betrayed and heartbroken. The night he drank too much and ended up in a hotel room. The night he woke up alone with his chain missing. Could this be the answer to all those questions? Could this little girl holding his hand be his daughter? They stopped in front of a rundown building with peeling paint and cracked windows. "This is where I live," Lily said quietly, almost embarrassed. Daniel looked at the building and felt his chest tighten. All these years, while he lived in a mansion, his own child might have been living here in poverty. "Show me," he said softly. Lily opened the door. The door creaked open, and Daniel stepped into a world he had never known existed. The room was tiny, barely bigger than his walk-in closet at home. There was a single mattress on the floor, a small table with 2 chairs, a hot plate in the corner, and clothes hanging on a rope stretched across the room. And there, lying on that thin mattress, was Grace. She was covered in sweat. Her hair stuck to her forehead, her eyes half closed. When she heard footsteps, she tried to sit up. "Lily, did you get the medicine?" "Mama." Lily ran to her. "I brought someone. He helped me." Grace looked up and saw a tall man in an expensive suit standing in her doorway. She felt embarrassed. Here she was, sick and weak, in her worst condition, and a stranger was seeing her like this. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Daniel stood frozen, staring at her. He didn't recognize her face. He had been too drunk that night 5 years ago to remember anything clearly, but something in his soul stirred, like a distant memory trying to surface. "My name is Daniel Whitmore," he said quietly. "I saw your daughter crying on the street. I couldn't just leave her there." Grace tried to stand up to show respect, but she was too weak. She fell back down. Daniel rushed forward and helped her sit up properly, placing a pillow behind her back. His touch was gentle, careful. "Please, don't try to stand," he said. "You need to rest. My driver went to get your medicine. He'll be here soon." Grace looked at him with confusion and gratitude. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that. I don't even know you." "About that," Daniel said slowly. His eyes moved to Lily, who was sitting close to her mother, the gold chain still hanging around her neck. "Can I ask you something? That chain your daughter is wearing, where did it come from?" Grace's face changed. She looked uncomfortable, almost scared. "Why do you ask?" Daniel knelt down so he was at eye level with her. "Because that chain belongs to me. I lost it 5 years ago." The room went completely silent. Grace's eyes went wide. Her hand flew to her mouth. "What did you say?" "That chain," Daniel said, pointing at it gently, "has my initials on it. D.W. Daniel Whitmore. I've been looking for it for 5 years. Grace started shaking. Tears filled her eyes. No, this can't be happening." "Please," Daniel said softly, "tell me how you got it. I need to know." Grace looked at Lily, then back at Daniel. Her whole body was trembling now. "It was 5 years ago," she began, her voice breaking. "I had just gotten a new job. My friend convinced me to go out and celebrate. We went to a nightclub called the Blue Moon." Daniel felt his heart stop. "The Blue Moon?" "Yes," Grace continued, tears now rolling down her cheeks. "I wasn't feeling well that night. I had taken medicine for a headache, and it made me dizzy. I went upstairs to find a place to rest. I found a room with the door open. I lay down on the bed and fell asleep." Daniel's hands started shaking. "When I woke up the next morning," Grace continued, "I was alone. The man was gone. I never saw his face clearly. I didn't know his name. All I found was that chain lying on the pillow next to me. I took it because it was the only thing I had. And then..." She looked at Lily and started crying harder. "A month later, I found out I was pregnant." Daniel felt like he had been hit by lightning. His vision blurred. His ears started ringing. He looked at Lily, really looked at her, and suddenly he saw it. The shape of her eyes. The curve of her smile. She had his mother's nose. She had his father's chin. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Oh my God." "I tried to find you," Grace said desperately. "I went back to the club. I asked everyone. But nobody knew anything. I had no name, no face, nothing. So I raised her alone. I worked every job I could find. I did everything I could to give her a life." Daniel's tears started falling. He couldn't stop them. "I was there that night," he said, his voice choking. "I had just been betrayed by my business partner. I went to the club and got drunk. My security team took me to a room to sleep it off. When I woke up, I was alone. I thought I had dreamed it all. I looked everywhere for my chain, but could never find it." He turned to Lily, who was watching with big, confused eyes. Daniel reached out slowly and touched her cheek. "You're my daughter," he whispered. "You're my little girl." Lily tilted her head. "Are you really my daddy?" "Yes." Daniel said, tears streaming down his face. "I'm your daddy. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." At that moment, the driver arrived with the medicine. Daniel helped Grace take it, his hands still shaking. Then he sat down on the floor next to them, not caring about his expensive suit. "I can't change the past," Daniel said, looking at both Grace and Lily. "But I can change the future. Please come with me. Both of you. Come to my home. Let me take care of you. Let me be a father to Lily. Let me make up for all the years I missed." Grace looked at him through her tears. "I don't want your money. I don't want your pity." "This isn't pity," Daniel said firmly. "This is responsibility. This is family. Lily is my blood. And you carried my child and raised her alone for 5 years. You deserve so much more than this." He gestured around the tiny room. "Please, let me help." Grace looked at her daughter. Lily was smiling for the first time in hours, touching her daddy's chain, and looking at the man who wore a matching watch with the same initials. "Okay," Grace whispered. "Okay." 3 hours later, a black Mercedes pulled up in front of a massive mansion in Lincoln Park. Grace and Lily sat in the back seat, staring with wide eyes at the biggest house they had ever seen. It had tall white columns, a circular driveway, a fountain in the front yard, and windows that seemed to go on forever. "Is this a castle?" Lily whispered. Daniel smiled from the front seat. "No, sweetheart. This is home. You're home now." When they walked inside, Grace couldn't believe her eyes. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, paintings on the walls, a staircase that curved like something from a fairy tale. Lily ran around giggling, her shoes squeaking on the shiny floor. Daniel showed them to their rooms. Grace had her own bedroom with a huge bed, a private bathroom, and a closet bigger than the room she had been living in. Lily's room had a canopy bed, shelves full of toys, and windows overlooking the garden. "This is too much," Grace said, tears in her eyes again. "We don't deserve this." "Yes, you do," Daniel said firmly. "You deserve this and so much more." He spent the rest of the day with them, playing with Lily, making sure Grace had everything she needed. He ordered food from the best restaurant in Chicago. They ate together at the big dining table, Lily telling her daddy all about her favorite colors and her friends at school. That evening, Daniel had to go check on some business matters. "I'll be back in a few hours," he said, kissing Lily on the forehead. "Be good, okay?" "Okay, Daddy," Lily said, already getting used to calling him that. But what Daniel didn't know was that someone else had a key to his mansion. Someone who thought she had a right to be there. Monica. 2 hours after Daniel left, the front door opened. Monica walked in wearing designer heels and carrying shopping bags. She was singing to herself, planning her future as Mrs. Whitmore. But when she walked into the living room, she froze. Grace was sitting on the couch, reading a book. Lily was playing with dolls on the carpet. Monica's face turned red with anger. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What are you doing in my fiancé's house?" Grace stood up quickly, startled. "I'm sorry. Daniel brought us here," he said. "I don't care what he said," Monica snapped. "You need to leave. Right now. You and this child don't belong here." "Please," Grace said quietly. "Just wait until Daniel comes back. He can explain everything." But Monica was furious. She had been planning her wedding, planning her future, and now this poor woman and her child were in her way. "Get out," she shouted. She grabbed Grace's arm and started pushing her toward the door. "Stop, please." Grace cried. Lily started crying. "Leave my mama alone." In the struggle, Monica shoved Grace hard. Grace stumbled backward, and Lily, trying to help her mother, tripped and fell. Her face hit the corner of the marble coffee table. Blood started dripping from a cut above her eye. "Mama!" Lily screamed. Grace rushed to her daughter, holding her close. "Look what you've done," she cried. "She's just a child." Monica crossed her arms, showing no remorse. That's what happens when you don't belong somewhere. Grace, with Lily crying in her arms, walked out of the mansion. Monica slammed the door behind them. They sat outside on the steps, Grace using her shirt to stop the bleeding from Lily's cut. They waited there for 2 hours under the hot sun with no food and no water. When Daniel's car finally pulled up, he saw them immediately. His heart dropped. He jumped out of the car before it even fully stopped. "What happened?" he shouted, running to them. He saw the blood on Lily's face, and his expression turned dark. "Who did this?" Your girlfriend?" Grace said quietly. "She said we don't belong here." Daniel's jaw clenched. He gently picked up Lily and carried her inside. Grace followed. Monica was sitting on the couch, calmly drinking wine and watching TV. "Monica," Daniel said, his voice cold as ice. "Come with me. Now." Monica stood up, annoyed. "Daniel, let me explain." "Now," he shouted. He carried Lily to his room, laid her gently on the bed, and called his family doctor to come immediately. Then he turned to Monica with fury in his eyes. "How could you," he said, "how could you hurt child? She doesn't belong here." Monica shot back. "I'm your fiancé. I'm carrying your baby. They're nothing." "That child," Daniel said, pointing to where Lily lay crying, "is my daughter, my flesh and blood, the daughter I didn't know I had for 5 years." Monica's face went pale. "What? And you know what else?" Daniel continued. "I've been lying to myself. I thought I loved you. I thought you were the one. But real love doesn't need lies. Real love doesn't hurt innocent people. But I'm pregnant." Monica cried desperately. Daniel looked at her sadly. Are you? Are you really? Or is that just another lie to trap me?" Monica's silence told him everything he needed to know. "Get out," Daniel said quietly. "Pack your things and leave. We're done." "Daniel, please." "I said get out." Monica left that night and never came back. The next morning, Daniel woke up early. He walked to Grace's room and knocked softly. She opened the door, looking tired but peaceful. "How's Lily?" he asked. "Better. The doctor said she'll be fine." They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Daniel spoke. "Grace, I know we barely know each other. I know the situation is complicated. But looking at you and Lily, I feel something I've never felt before. That empty space in my heart, it's gone. You two filled it." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not asking you to love me," Daniel continued. "I'm not asking for anything. I just want to be here. For both of you. If you'll let me." Grace smiled through her tears. "We like that." 6 months later, the mansion was filled with laughter. Lily was running through the halls, now wearing new dresses and going to the best school in Chicago. Grace had started her own small business with Daniel's support, a bakery that made cakes for children's birthdays. And Daniel? He spent every evening at home, reading bedtime stories to his daughter and falling slowly, truly in love with Grace. On a quiet Sunday evening, they all sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Lily was asleep in Daniel's arms. Grace held his hand. "You know what?" Daniel said softly. "I spent years searching for happiness in all the wrong places. And all this time, it was waiting for me in that tiny room with a gold chain." Grace smiled. "And I spent years thinking I was alone. But I was never alone. I was just waiting for the right time." Lily stirred in her sleep and whispered, "Love you, Daddy." Daniel kissed her forehead, tears in his eyes. "I love you too, Princess. Forever." Real love cannot be forced or built on lies. It grows naturally through truth, patience, and kindness. Sometimes the things we spend our whole lives searching for are already close to us, just waiting to be discovered. And sometimes the biggest blessings come from our biggest mistakes. What matters most is not how the story begins, but how we choose to finish it. Thank you for listening to this story. May it remind you that it's never too late to make things right, and love always finds a way home.